Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, February 13th Common Council meeting. It is 7 p.m. Our first item of business will be the roll call. I'll ask our city clerk, Joanne Marcon, to call the roll, please.
Mayor Kim Smith,
Here.
Sean McAllister, excused. Dan Stevens,
I am present.
Stephen Knott,
Present.
Leanne Stokes,
Here.
Larry Jurassic,
Present.
Diane Wolf.
Here.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic Thank you. Item 3. The city council and subcommittee meetings shall be conducted in a courteous manner. Citizens, council, and committee members shall be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free of slander, obscene remarks, or threats of violence. Sufficient warnings may be given by the sergeant at arms or the chair at any time during the remarks. And in the event that any individual shall violate the rules of decorum as set forth, such person may then be cut off from comment and debate. Item 4 is public input. If you would like to address the Common Council this evening, now is the time to do so. Please begin by stating your name and your address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to address the Common Council this evening? Second call.
Gonna come up and speak.
Second call for anyone wishing to address the Common Council. Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak to the Common Council this evening. Okay, public input is now closed and we will move on to item 5, report from the mayor. First up is recognition of Equity Transit Day. This was held on February 4th to commemorate Rosa Parks' birthday. It's an opportunity to take time out of our busy day and busy lives and recognize the importance of public transportation to many people in our community. This year, as previous years, I had the opportunity to serve an office hour on a bus where I had an opportunity to meet many people who rely on public transportation as their only means to get to work, to get their groceries, and to commute anywhere. So by doing that each year, I think it really helps me understand the importance of that. And I hope as we go forward, we can eventually end up with more bus service in the community of Onalaska. Item B is Red Cross presentation and proclamation. Pete, you want to do your presentation first? Everyone welcome Pete Napick. He is the community volunteer leader for the Red Cross in our area. I'll turn it over to you, sir.
And I appreciate the time of the mayor and the city council. I was here last year and you were kind enough to issue a proclamation for March for Red Cross Month. And I'm very happy to hear that you're going to do the same thing this year. I'm accompanied by John Honadell, who is a resident of Onalaska, and he is also on the board of directors of the Southwest chapter of the Wisconsin Red Cross. So John is in the area and we thought it very appropriate that he come here and meet with you folks. Mayor, I'm going to give you a copy of what I'll read just briefly here. This is a very bare bones summary of what the Red Cross did in Onalaska last year. We participated in 3 disaster operations. In general, this means that we assisted victims of home fires and provided either financial or otherwise some kind of help to those families to get them to recover. We installed more than 30 smoke alarms to residents of Onalaska. We conducted 35 blood drives in the city of Onalaska, collecting over 680 units of blood. It's incredibly valuable these days, and blood shortages are prevalent throughout much of the country. We taught first aid to 112 people. We taught lifeguarding and water safety skills to over 110 people. And we provided services to the armed forces to 11 individuals from the city of Onalaska. So we're active here. This is finishing up, I think, our second year of partnership with the Onalaska Fire Department. We're partners in our smoke alarm program. And we're happy that Chief Federer is going to continue that with us this year. So that is all in writing here for you. And then
Yep, okay. Okay, thank you so much for that. At this time, I would like to declare March 2024 as American Red Cross Month. Whereas during American Red Cross Month in March, we celebrate the humanitarian spirit of Onalaska and reaffirm our commitment to help ensure that no one faces a crisis alone. Whereas caring for one another is at the heart of our community and exemplified by the people of Onalaska, whose simple acts of kindness through the Red Cross provide help and hope in the people's most difficult moments, continuing the life-saving legacy of Clara Barton, who founded the organization more than 140 years ago to prevent and alleviate suffering. And whereas every day these ordinary individuals lend a helping hand to make an extraordinary difference for our neighbors in need, whether it's providing emergency shelter, food and comfort, donating life-saving blood, supporting military members and veterans using vital skills like first aid and CPR, or delivering international humanitarian aid and reconnecting loved ones separated by crisis around the world. Whereas their support, volunteerism, and generous donations are critical to our community's resilience. And whereas we hereby recognize the month of March in honor of all of those who fulfill Clara Barton's noble words, you must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it. Now, therefore, as mayor of the city of Onalaska, I do hereby proclaim that the month of March 2024 is declared American Red Cross Month, and that all citizens of Onalaska are encouraged to reach out and support the American Red Cross's humanitarian mission. So thank you both for your service. Get the IT guy.
so we got.
You wanna get a little closer?
Yeah.
No.
This won't appear in.
Thank you so much.
This won't appear in any. Thank you.
All right. At this time, I would like to recognize full-time firefighter EMT Quito Weber on completing his 1 year of probation. I'll turn it over to Chief Floody for the honors.
Thank you. Here tonight to celebrate and recognize Quito Weber's 1 year probationary period. So he successfully passed this just recently. Quito grew up in La Crosse and graduated from Central. He is also a graduate of Western Tech with an associate degree in fire science. Prior to beginning as a full-time firefighter, Quito was one of our success stories as a part-time firefighter, who was active, one of our more active members, and was hired full-time. What I've noticed about Quito is he's kind of quiet around the station, but he's always busy, always engaged with something for the betterment of the department in the city. Now, I say he's quiet, but these guys might have something else to say about that. I don't know, but he's just one of those open, honest, caring, genuine people. Comes to work with a positive attitude every day, gives 100% effort every day, which is not going to only take him far in his career, but in life in general. So here tonight to help congratulate Quito, are his mom and dad, Pam and Tom. And they're gonna be doing the badge pinning. Also here tonight is his little boy, Tommy. And unfortunately, Abby had to work tonight, so she couldn't be there. That's Quito's wife. But I'd like to welcome up, Pam and Tom to do Quito's badge pinning, so.
Chief. If you want to stand by him for a picture quick, please. Turn around.
Yeah, firefighter in training.
Congratulations, Quito.
Get a little outfit and.
Okay, recommendations for approval and or possible action from the following committees, commissions, boards, and officials. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business in the non-consent agenda. Are there any items the councilors would like removed from the consent agenda? If not,
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda. The motion was made by Diane Wolf and it's been seconded by Stephen Knott. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. The consent agenda is passed. Moving to the non-consent agenda, item 7 is a recap of items pulled from the consent agenda. There were none. Item 8 is the Finance Committee. I'll turn it over to Finance Chair Leanne Stokes.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 8A is the vouchers. The following is a list of monies expended since the last Common Council meeting dated January 9th, 2024. These payables include a percentage 28.61% in 2023 compared to 32.79% in 2024 of taxes collected through January 31st, 2024 to the taxing entities. The total amount is $14,130,068.75. I make a motion to approve this item 8A.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Leanne Stokes. It's been seconded by Larry Jurassic. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Back to you, Leanne.
Item 8B, the 2024 financing plan. Sabrina?
Thank you. So in your packets tonight is the financing plan for 2024 that was presented to Finance and Personnel. There was some discussion regarding later on in the meeting regarding our reserves and possibly short-term borrowing. So this was approved at the committee level, but we decided to put it on non-consent so we could have a discussion regarding this. Right now, the plan is to borrow $3,465,000 for capital improvements in regards to bonding, and then to short-term borrow $668,257 through a state trust fund loan. In your packets, it does show that the interest rate for the short-term borrowing is at 6.25%. Brad from Bayer did tell us at F&P that is at 6% now, so it did go down slightly. After the meeting, Rick and I did have a conversation with Brad regarding if we would want to pay it off early, what our options were. If we, didn't really like the 6% interest, what kind of were our options? So one of them was that we could pay it off early. Secondly, we could next year for 2025, if we decided not to pay this off early, we could incorporate that with our bonding for 2025, and we could put it in terms of a bond, still pay it off in 5 years, but at a lower interest rate. So those are kind of our options in regards to the short-term borrowing. After that discussion, I did put a couple options out here. I did give that to you in a form of a memo. Option one being that we continue as planned and we short-term borrow the $668,257 with the state trust fund loan. We continue with the plan I had put in place with transferring $700,000 to the equipment replacement fund. If we did that, we could pay that state trust fund loan off early if we had another good year in 2024 or in 2025. So that's really my option one. Option two would be to use a portion of the surplus of that $700,000 to reduce the amount of short-term borrowing in 2024, and then also transfer a portion to the equipment replacement fund. If that were the option, my recommendation would be to use $200,000 of the surplus towards short-term borrowing and borrow $468,257. And then everything else would stay in the general fund, the other portion of the reserves that we have. And then option three would be to forego borrowing with the state trust fund loan and use the surplus to offset the short-term borrowing for 2024. My recommendation as your finance director would be option one. I think it's a positive thing to put money into our reserves, especially the equipment replacement fund, which in my time here, we've fluctuated where we use a decent amount of money in some years and other years not as much. 2023, we did spend $593,000 in the equipment replacement fund. So being able to transfer $700,000 there would be a positive thing. So we don't have to use fund balance and equipment replacement. I also believe keeping some reserves in the general fund keeps us in a good position financially. As we look forward to this community center project, having a large reserve balance is only a positive thing. We also, part of the reason why I want to keep $600,000 in the general fund reserves is looking at 2023 general fund expenses to 2024 general fund expenses. We did increase that by $685,000. So being able to add to fund balance in a year where we are increasing expenses, again, it's just the perfect way to do it in regards to my opinion.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. Is this just a discussion item?
No, I think
That actually
there needs to be approval of the financing
of the
plan
plan?
that
Okay.
is presented.
So would somebody please put a motion on the floor and then we can discuss if necessary?
I'll move to approve the 2024 financing plan. Do we need to state what option?
No, the plan that we have, the
Oh.
existing plan. We need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Leanne Stokes to approve the 2024 financing plan. Now, under discussion, Stephen Knott.
Yeah, so I'm just curious how this is going to interact then with the resolution to transfer, because that's a separate item. Is this something that we're doing combined
No,
right now, or is this, we can approve as is, and then we get to resolution, make the adjustments, whatever common council may or may not deem necessary?
Or do we approve the plan after we do the resolutions?
Okay, we'll let the finance director answer the question.
I think the way I would approach it, and I'll let Amanda tell me if I'm right or wrong, would be that you would approve the plan or you would amend the plan, the financing plan to make it less, so we would borrow less. So if that is your intent, then you would say, I approve the financing plan of borrowing 3.4 million for the bonds, but a certain amount for short-term borrowing, if that was your intent. Or you would just approve the plan, and then later on in the meeting, when we get to the resolution, you would adjust the resolution.
Not sure that I'm clear. I'm referring specifically to the 9-2024, which I believe deals with the budget surplus, correct?
Correct.
So obviously, we're going to have to approve that as a standalone. And we're talking about this as a standalone, but they actually interact directly.
Yeah, so whatever changes you make to the financing plan, if they impact one of the resolutions, when you get to that resolution, you'll need to make a corresponding change.
So we do need to have the discussion now on the surplus, not later when we get to item
Well,
F.
only if it would affect the borrowing.
If it impacts one of these resolutions.
Okay.
Normally, we just go right into the resolutions, and then when we get to the money part, we decide the budget surplus, then we decide what we're gonna do with the budget, if we're gonna follow the finance director's recommendation or not, do something different.
Oh.
But in this case, since there was inquiries and questions about it potentially affecting our short-term borrowing, I think staff wants just to call it out to make sure we discuss it on the front end and take it holistically.
Okay.
Okay, so Dan Stevens?
I would submit that maybe it would make more sense to approve the resolutions first. And then after that's done, we'll have our plan. So, because otherwise we're going to have to approve the plan, do the resolutions, and if there's any changes, then we're going to have to make an amendment. We could just do the resolutions first and then approve our plan.
Okay, that would work if you're not going to change the borrowing structure. If we're going to go with the finance director's recommendation, how it's all set up here, and the only thing you're considering changing is the equipment replacement fund. Right, is that correct, Sabrina? Stephen, not?
Okay. I have no problem following the recommendation from the finance director. I did have some questions, of course, last week during FMP, but I think I've had a lot of them resolved. I waiting 1 year to see how our financial situation is as a city again in the following year to make sure we don't need that for something unforeseen, especially with the community center coming up. I guess that makes sense, but I do have one very large concern. And that's that when that time comes next year, there's going to be a possibility that it could be viewed as windfall, if you will. And now we just get to spend even more. And that would be something I would be hugely opposed to. I think that in the end, I am looking at if we continue down this road of having a lot of having a budget surplus, that by next year's budget cycle, I'd be definitely looking at eliminating the entire 2024 or as much as possible, short-term borrowing at the higher interest as much as possible. And I understood that we might get a lower rate if we were to transfer it into short-term bonding. Have to hear more about it. But bottom line is my big fear is that when that time comes, we kind of do the, Christmas came early and now we got this huge windfall and we can do exactly what we did this year and then spend even more because we had this. And that's, I think, the big danger. I'd rather be addressing debt on the long term here. So.
Okay, Sabrina, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I guess my only comment would be that by adding to reserves, that doesn't mean that we are going to spend that money. I actually prefer that we keep our reserves in our reserves. So I don't foresee that by us having these reserves that we're just going to go and spend them. That's not my intent.
No, I understand. but
don't
there are
like
a lot of
using
people have
reserves.
saying that, and I'm just getting that into the minutes that's we need to keep in mind that too when that time comes in another 10 months. That hopefully we'll be looking at as a potential to reduce our debt. So
That would be my intent.
yeah, But I can see how we could have unforeseen expenses, especially with the community center coming up. It might be good to hold on to that for a little while.
Okay, any other comments from the counselors? Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So Sabrina, I have some questions. So in reserves right now, we have a little bit over, is it $9 million in the general?
Yep, that is correct.
So as someone who is always very pro, put away for a rainy day and being very cautious with taxpayer dollars, at what point is enough for reserves? I guess is my question, my first question.
Never. There's never too much to have sitting aside. We are financially sound as a municipality. We are. We don't borrow above our means. We don't expend above our means. But the fact that we did increase our expenditures this year is only a positive thing to add to reserves. It helps keep us in a strong bond rating with Moody's. We do have to go out for a second borrowing in 2024 for this community center. So being able to add to our reserves when we're going to need to borrow an additional $4 million over the next 2 years for the community center, it only puts us in a positive position by adding to reserves. So I'm not really answering your number, like there's not a specific number. But in my opinion, if we're going to increase our expenditures and increase our debt this year, we should be we would want to add to our reserves to keep that strong financial position.
Okay, thank you. So I've looked at this, I've talked to a few people, and I guess I had a possible option 4. And that was for possibly this council to consider the columbarium. I know there was a lot of community support for it when our capital improvement list first came out in September. I believe all 5 voting members were 100% behind it. Obviously, it fell and ended up on the cutting room floor come November because there were a lot of other very good projects that ended up pushing it out. And I certainly understand. I guess my concern is, and I had a good long talk with Jared today about this, and thank you again, Jared. So my one concern is that, when we have 10, 12, 13, $14 million for capital improvements every single year, and we're trimming it down to $3.5 to $4 million or so, there's always something that needs to be done. And my concern is, I have a concern that it would be very easy every single fall to lose sight of the columbarium. So I did talk with, like I said, I talked with Jared at length, and if Jared could talk maybe a little bit about the columbarium and his thoughts, because the reason why I talked with him mainly, number one, was because the last thing I thought a council member should be doing is telling staff what their schedule is and how much availability they should have. That's why I reached out to him to see what could his staff do. Does it make sense to go ahead and maybe set money aside? Do we gain any time or anything? So if I could turn the floor over and reserve my time after Jared is done.
Sure. Jared Coulter, City
Thank you.
Director of Public Works, sorry. Too many years.
In looking at the columbarium project, staff has been working on the project, trying to move it forward. We're still waiting for some design work from our consultant on the final designs for the columbarium, and looking at the timelines and things. It's going to, even if it gets funded this year, it's going to be a 2025 finish for construction. So I think if it gets funded within the 2025 capital improvements budget, we can finish it in 2025. That is our goal as staff. If we fund it today, since it wasn't within the first December public hearing, we haven't been pushing to get the project moved forward at a brisk pace. There's decisions that need to be made yet on what exact columbarium we're going to purchase, things such as that. So there's some design decisions that need to be made yet. And we're hopeful that with city staff, we can actually move the project forward this year, possibly starting on some of the site work with city staff in the fall.
Thank you for that, Jared. Back to you, Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Your Honor. So I appreciate Alder not bringing up some scenarios and questioning at F&P last week. I think I'm good at this point. Thank
All
you.
right, any other discussion? Alder Jurassic? Oh, Alder
ahead.
Jurassic first, please. Alder Jurassic?
Good. Okay.
Just a point of order, are we discussing, are we approving the financing plan?
We're
or are we-
discussing
Are
item
we
B.
discussing options? Because
We're discussing item B, the 2024 financing plan.
it seems like we've gotten a little off, but anyway, go ahead.
The only question I have is, option 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which one of these would change our rating for the bond, or would it all stay the same no matter which one we pick?
Larry, can you talk into your microphone? Because I was having trouble
Right.
hearing you. What did you say?
With option 1, 2, 3, and 4, I was wondering which one of those would change our bonding rating or none of them at all?
That is a great question. I think he's asking which of the four options, now adding Diane's fourth option, would affect our Moody's rating for our bonding. That's a really tough call. I'm not Moody's. I don't know how they would handle each situation. I can say adding to our reserves is not going to affect our rating. So really option 1 and option 2 is not going to affect our rating. Probably the only thing that would affect it is if our revenues were to drop and we would continue to, if we would start using fund balance on a regular basis, then we would see our ratings drop.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, the motion on the floor is to approve the 2024 finance plan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Thank you. It is approved. Back to you, Leanne.
Item 8C, City of Onalaska 2024 Capital Projects General Obligation Corporate Purpose Bonds. C1 is Resolution 2-2024, initial resolution authorizing 2,190,000 general obligation bonds for street improvement projects.
I move to approve resolution 2-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Alder Wolf to approve resolution 20-2024. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please answer when your name is called.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
This resolution passes. Leanne?
Item 8C2, Resolution 3-2024, initial resolution authorizing 455,000 general obligation bonds for park and public grounds projects.
I move to approve resolution 3-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Knott. It's been seconded by Alder Stevens to approve resolution 3-2024. Is there any discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens.
Aye.
Resolution 3-2024 passes. Back to you, Leanne.
Item 8C3, Resolution 4-2024, initial resolution authorizing $500,000 general obligation bonds for equipment of the fire department.
I move to approve resolution 4-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Larry Jurassic to approve resolution 4-2024. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, please answer when your name is called.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic.
Aye.
That resolution passes unanimously.
Item number 8C4, Resolution 5-2024, initial resolution authorizing $30,000 general obligation funds for parking lot projects.
I move to approve resolution 5-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Knott. It's been seconded by Alder Jurassic to approve Resolution 5-2024. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, please answer when your name is called.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Dan Stevens.
Aye.
This resolution passes unanimously.
Item number 8C5, Resolution 6-2024, initial resolution authorizing $290,000 general obligation bonds for water system projects.
I move to approve resolution 6-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Knott. It's been seconded by Alder Wolf to approve Resolution 6-2024. Is there any discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes.
Aye.
This resolution passes unanimously.
Item number 8D, Resolution 7-2024, resolution directing publication of notice to electors relating to bond issues.
I move to approve resolution 7-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Knott. It's been seconded by Alder Jurassic to approve Resolution 7-2024. Is there any discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott.
Aye.
This resolution passes unanimously.
Item 8E, Resolution 8-2024, resolution providing for the sale of not to exceed $3,465,000 general obligation corporate purpose bonds.
Motion to approve Resolution 8-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Wolf. It's been seconded by Alder Knott to approve Resolution 8-2024. Is there any discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Stephen Knott.
Aye.
Thank you. This resolution passes unanimously.
Item 8F, Resolution 9-2024, resolution to transfer from the 2023 general fund budget to the special revenue fund equipment replacement fund.
I move to approve resolution 9-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Diane Wolf to approve Resolution 9-2024. Is there any discussion? Alder Stevens.
All right, so I think this is what we're waiting for in the discussion before. So essentially, as I understand it, we have, it's very nice to have a $1.3 million surplus. We have had times in the past where it was not a surplus, it was a deficit, and trying to find how we're going to balance is a different kind of problem. So we did get a memo from Sabrina with regarding the three options, and I guess now we have a fourth. And if we're going to go through those, I think that I've been giving a lot of thought to this today, and I talked to Sabrina, and she made a pretty compelling case as to why it's better to beef up the reserves and you know, because there could be unforeseen circumstances that happen in the future. There is, for anybody listening that cares, there's kind of two different amounts. So if we were to use the funds to pay off or not borrow on the short-term trust fund, that would have while that would have a good effect on the mill rate, it would lower it. That does not free up cash savings that we can use in our general operating budget, which would be kind of attractive if we're trying to balance the books going forward. But that does not necessarily mean that that's a bad thing. I think anytime that we have an opportunity to lower the mill rate, that's something that we should look at. If it were my job to be a finance director, I would probably be doing just as Sabrina would suggest and do option one, because you know, I don't know what keeps her up at night, but I would guess it would be what happens if the city runs out of money and, oh my God, what are we gonna do? But we have to look at this from everybody's standpoint, you know, how do we make the city operate? What's fair to the taxpayers? What keeps the city running as well as it possibly can? So I've really been oscillating all back and forward on this. And one thing I after reading the notes from the F&P, I saw that there was some discussion there, and I thought we just might want to build on it. And I did have some questions for Sabrina, although Diane kind of touched off on some of those. And the first was like, I guess I'll ask this to Sabrina, but this is also to the other alders. Like, how much is the appropriate amount that we should maintain in our equipment replacement fund? Like, we all may have a different idea, and until we know what that number is, like, why do we keep adding to it? So are we underfunded at this point? You know, what is the ideal amount? And at what point, as Wolf said, is it too much? And do we need to do something else? And the same thing has to do with the cash reserves, which is just kind of another equipment replacement fund. I mean, we can transfer money from back and forth, but so between the two, I mean, we're looking at like $11 million. That's a substantial chunk of change. And to reference the notes from the F&P, we are looking at, I mean, rates, I don't believe have been higher in the last decade. So if we're looking at a surplus and we want to borrow money to beef up our savings account, I mean, if ever there was a time to not do that, it's when we have the cash. And when things were a little tighter and we, due to COVID, and we had the ARPA funds, I don't want to say it was a commitment, but the council made a plan to reduce its net interest expense. And in doing so was to get rid of the higher interest rate short-term trust fund, which typically goes over a 5-year period. And we've already got 2 of those done without having to go back to that well. Why are we going back to that well when we don't need to? So I'm actually in favor of option 3. I'm not in favor of option 4. I was disappointed that the columbarium did not make the capital improvement budget. I really hope it goes through in this next cycle, but columbariums are, that's brick and mortar. That's something that will last a long time. That is exactly the kind of thing that should be in the capital improvement budget, which we're borrowing at a lower rate than we would be if we borrow money from the short-term fund and then beef up our savings. So essentially, if we go with option 4, we're kind of using the short-term trust fund to offset the cost for the columbarium. I don't think that's a good plan. I think we wait till next year when I suspect rates are going to be lower. I'd be very surprised if they're higher. And we get better terms on a long-term capital debt. So with that said, I don't know if 2 million and 9 million is enough, just right, or not enough. I think it's a separate discussion that we should have, and maybe even put that on the F&P agenda for next month, and we can determine, maybe not like as a rule, but general guidelines as to where we want to be financially. And I know over time, it's, as the city gets bigger and there's more people that move here, that number will probably have to go up over time. But if we don't have a starting point for where we want to be right now, why are we borrowing money to move that figure higher at a time where the cost is not likely to be, we're not likely to get worse terms that if we do this right now. So I would make a motion that we will.
We have a motion on the floor.
No.
You
Well,
have
so I
to
can
do an
amend the motion then.
amendment.
So the motion on the floor would be to approve this as standard.
Yes.
Option 1. So I will make a motion to amend resolution 8-2024. I'm sorry, 9-2024 to switch to option 3. This is our opportunity to have an impact to lower the mill rate. How often does that come around?
For purposes of discussion, I'll go ahead and second.
Okay, and I want to refer to the attorney. Can we do that in this motion because this is regarding, this item on the agenda action is regarding putting some of the 2023 budget surplus into the equipment replacement fund. Option 3 would include the state fund borrowing, which we've already passed, which was why we were
That's why we
discussing that.
Wanted
I
to
feel like
clarify
the
that.
logic is kind of off because
Yeah.
we spent, I'm sure Sabrina spent the entire year developing the 2024 budget plan as we were able to develop it. And that is what the financing was based on and structured around. And the budget surplus, fortunately, we were able to have for the 2023 budget. So it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of crossing two things at this point, but I'm not sure. I'll refer to Amanda for the correct thing to do because we have a motion on the floor and I'm not sure if it was
Well,
seconded.
It was for purpose of discussion, but I agree with the logic you're going. I don't know that I even need to go any further. So
Okay.
I'm going to withdraw my second.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll still second it for discussion.
Okay, so we have an amendment on the floor from Dan Stevens, seconded by Diane Wolf, and that is to amend to amend. I'm not sure how you would do that in the framework of this. So
I think you should address the original motion, and then if you vote that motion down, then you can make a new motion. Because this isn't so much as an amendment, it's an attempt to kill the original motion, right? Like you've wandered off. We're not really amending the original motion at this point. We're completely changing it. So I think
then-
you should,
This is why we wanted to clarify at the beginning, when are we going to talk about this? Because
and
if we had to approve this at the beginning, then if we couldn't change it, then
I thought
why
that's
was it an
what,
option?
that's what we were discussing, the 2024 financing plan, so that we could discuss it in its whole, as a whole, before we started approving the details. Okay, so I think we'd have to take down the motion regarding resolution 9-2024. And then if you really wanted to do that, we'd have to bring a motion we already passed back to the table and put that one down or amend it.
yeah.
Okay. So that's why I was having trouble trying to state the amendment. Alder.
I guess I'm thinking maybe that if we want to revisit this all in full and have a more robust discussion, since we've already passed the original budget financing plan, that maybe we put this on the agenda next month for further discussion. No?
No,
No?
but I
Oh.
do think what we could do is by putting it into the equipment replacement fund, it leaves it available for us.
Yeah, correct. And
It
that's,
can be spent at another time. Now,
so,
Sabrina could maybe outline when those opportunities were, if there wanted to be more discussion about that, Sabrina.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So yes, by putting dollars into the equipment replacement fund and putting dollars into the general fund reserves, that does free up the opportunity to later pay off the short-term borrowing. if
well, that's what
that
I was just trying to
what
say.
The
and
intent
was so told
was.
no. That was my intent of the comments I just made about putting this on an agenda item for next month.
Well,
The- Yeah, I think that we couldn't do it next, we could discuss it next month, but
Okay.
Sabrina, what would the window be for the?
I apologize. The window that I would recommend, if that is the intent, that we would, we've approved the financing plan. We bring a separate motion forward for the short-term borrowing in the March meeting. We're getting very close to my audit, so I need these things approved and things to move forward. But later on in the year, that would be my recommendation, is that as we get through the third quarter, maybe even a ways through the fourth quarter, if we are looking like we're going to have a good year, we could pay that short-term borrowing off at the beginning of 2025. That would be my recommendation, if that was the intent you wanted to go with paying off the short-term borrowing.
It'd probably about the same time frame that we'd have more clarity on the community center too, I think, correct? Yeah, so, yeah.
I mean, could we just approve the general obligation bonds and not approve the short-term borrowing for now and take that aspect up next week?
You've already approved the short-term borrowing.
Yeah.
It could be
Well,
reconsidered.
Yeah, we could reconsider that. That's why I had asked questions in the beginning. I thought that we were going to address this
Yeah.
on item F on resolution 9. And then we kind of just all started talking about it at the beginning. So that's why I thought it would make sense to start approving things and then we'd have a finalized plan of what we all agreed on. Instead, we've approved the whole plan and then we're hoping that everybody would agree to it by the time we got through with the resolutions. I mean,
That was
that's-
what the discussion on item B was for.
So I think the point of item B was to clarify that everybody was comfortable with short-term borrowing. So you passed and approved that, which left you still had options with resolution 9, but those options were then limited to how you wanted to spend that money, not in lieu of borrowing. Does that make sense?
It does. Maybe it wasn't clear to me at that time. So
Okay, we'll go to Sabrina first and then Alder Wolf second after that.
So we did approve the plan, and now with you approving the plan, I will apply for the short-term borrowing, and then there'll be a resolution with the full, with the full intent of the borrowing for short-term before I finalize that borrowing. So that will come forth in the March meeting. But you're giving me approval to go apply for that loan. That's what you're doing by approving the financing plan. And there'll be a separate resolution for the short-term borrowing in March.
But if you don't want to do that, she would need to know that probably before she went through the trouble.
But we can always pay it off early, meaning geez, even month or 2 months, that's what you were referring to, 3 months later, 6 months later after the loan is taken.
can you estimate the net cost, including fees, if we paid it off in a month?
It would be a 6% interest. I'd have to run a calculation, but I could do that.
Okay, one moment. Alder Wolf was to have the floor after Sabrina, and then if someone else wants to talk, let me know.
Thank you, Your Honor. So a couple of things. The reason why I brought up the possible option number 4, I realized it was more my personal option. I apologize for possible miscommunication. Main reason why I wanted to bring it up is something that I have been thinking about. Talking with Jared, I thought it was good to at least have the discussion. So for those people who are saying, oh, you have a $1 million surplus, what about the columbarium? Because there are people who are chattering out there. They really want this pushed. I really wanted to have the discussion this evening to try to keep it in the forefront of electeds' minds that the future, so we don't lose sight of it. I agree with Alder Stevens that it wouldn't be appropriate to go ahead and use the dollars for it at this point in time, and especially we're not really going to gain really any time funding at this point. I think we follow the path that our Public Works Director Jared Holter has laid out, and I think that we need to slower roll and do it right the first time. Anytime we try to rush anything, that's when we can make mistakes. So let's just take our time, do it right, and do it the Onalaska way. Secondly, I think Alder Stevens may have, I think he just misspoke. My concern was not the balance in equipment replacement fund. My concern was how much was too much for the general fund. So I'm very much in support of plumping up the equipment replacement fund as much as we can if possible. I know, I think we've talked about the possibility of possibly running police cars through there in the future. And that, to me, that just makes perfect sense instead of capital improvements. And I think if we go that route, we're going to need those dollars in that account. So thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have.
Thank you. Sabrina Steger?
Diane brings up a good point in regards to the equipment replacement fund. It is a valuable asset to have to be able to purchase items out of there. And if we didn't pay off the short-term borrowing for 2024, my intent would be during Public Works that we try to use the equipment replacement fund to purchase police vehicles or some of those other items that we have been short-term borrowing for in the past. So by continuing to add to the equipment replacement fund is only a benefit to the city.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Larry Jurassic?
Yeah, the way I look at it, option one, I'd rather see money going into a savings account, which is basically the equipment fund, because prices are always going to change within that year. I'd rather have the money there that we can adjust later in the year for other options, especially the senior center coming up. That's my feeling is option one.
Okay. Any other discussion? This is discussion on the amendment that was made to resolution 9-2024. Any other discussion on the amendment? Alder Wolf?
Is this Alder Stevens amendment?
Yes, I wasn't sure how to word it though. How do you have it worded, Joanne?
The Alder Stevens is referring to option 3 on the memo. So we would have to reword the resolution to reflect option 3.
Okay. Okay, so is there any other, Alder Stevens?
So I guess if we approve it as is, like half at 6%, that'd be half of 1% a month on 650,000. It's roughly $3,000 cost for us to roll this over to next month, which we could probably live with that. I guess it depends on when the funds would be borrowed, but I mean, we should do it right the first time. I just want to stress that I don't think either one is necessarily a bad option. It's good to have your cash reserves. I just don't think that, borrowing money while rates are highest is the time to do that. I've in the past always had the philosophy that when rates are low, we should try to get ahead on as much stuff as we can when the cost of funds are really cheap. Now we're at the other end of the spectrum, and this is building up our reserves it's a nice thing to have. Having good reserves is good for your bond rating, but also it's good for your bond rating to have less debt. And typically, I don't think our bond rating has fluctuated at all in the last 10 years. I think it's been the same. So as long as you're not blowing your surplus on things that you don't need, then, both actions should have a positive impact when it would come to Moody's underwriting, at least as far as I would understand it. So I just think it's, we kind of had a plan and we're making a major pivot. It seems like this is not having a surplus with rates high is not the time to pivot off of that, where we were trying to get off of the higher rate state trust fund loan. And instead, I would support borrowing money at the lower rate, longer term funds if necessary. So if we got the surplus, we can pay for, squad cars and things that are of a more short-term nature that would depreciate within a 5-year span. And we have the cash. It seems like that would be a good steward to do that. So anyway, we shouldn't borrow money if we don't need to, if we know we're going to have a net negative interest, meaning that our taxpayers are borrowing money and then we're receiving slightly less money in our cash reserves. That's just not a good long-term strategy. If anybody wants to give me $100 and I will give you $100, or I will give you $99 back a year from now, we're welcome to do that. But that's kind of what we're doing with the city funds. So it's not optimal.
Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. So just to be clear, so an aye vote is to support Alder Stevens option 3.
Correct. If
Thank
you
you so
vote aye, you are in support of option 3.
Thank you so much. And I do
If you
ask,
vote no, then we're going to revert back to the original motion, which is to approve resolution 9-2023 as described in our packet.
thank you so much. And I do ask for a roll call vote.
Okay, so this will be voting on the amendment, which is if you vote aye, it means you're in support of option 3. And Joanne Marcon, our city clerk, will be so kind as to take the roll call vote.
Larry Jurassic,
No.
Stephen Knott,
No.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
No,
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
Okay, so the amendment fails 3-2. And we'll go back to the original motion on the floor, which is resolution 9-2024. The motion on the floor is to approve this resolution. Is there any further discussion on the original motion? Stephen Knott.
Yeah, I support the motion, but I actually, on the big picture, agree with everything that Diane and Dan said, and you'd actually be able to pick that up by the FMP minutes last month. But I just think it's prudent also to see, as we're waiting on this multi-million-dollar project with the community center, I just think it might be prudent to make sure we have enough available if there's any overages that we're unprepared for. And then we can determine what to do. And I'm at that point, third quarter, fourth quarter is what I think was mentioned. I'd be 100% looking at, we need to eliminate that 2024 short-term debt if that surplus is still there. So.
Okay, Alder Wolf. We'll just come around this way once and then we're going to vote and be done on this topic.
Thank you, Your Honor. So just as a response to Alder Knott, regarding, not sure, like we're going to be with the community center going forward. I'll be frank, as I think most of you know that I usually am. I am very hopeful that we are not sitting here later this year and possibly, and this is not what you said, but how you framed it. So this isn't anything against what you said, but just, I hope that any of us sitting up here do not take the easy way out. Just because we have the money to spend does not mean that we should not be reining ourselves in, spending appropriately, doing right by the city of Onalaska, and honoring our initial commitment. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Leanne Stokes.
I'm in favor of option 1, and I have been since my discussions with Sabrina. She and I had quite lengthy discussions back and forth regarding this, and I believe that she is our city finance director and has a lot of knowledge regarding all of this, and I just think we should be using option 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Stevens.
I guess 2 points. So first I would like to, hopefully, FMP will pick it up next month. I do think that it would be prudent to have a conversation on where we think our reserves ought to be. I mean, maybe they need to be doubled. I don't know. I think if we had a framework where we all had a starting point and it was a goal, that would help for future planning. So, do we have too much? Do we not have enough? Is it just right after this next budget? And where do we want to take it from there? So the second, I mean, I'm clearly a little disappointed. Very rarely do we have an opportunity to vote on something that will directly affect the mill rate. And very often we have to make choices that you don't have any good choices. It's just the least bad one. And, at least it's interesting discussion. And I think there's a philosophy that we need to establish as to, what is our plan, or do we have a general consensus when it comes to not only debt, but to excess, how do we want to spend that going forward? So that's all I have.
Thank you. Alder Jurassic.
Thank you, Mayor. I too have had discussions with Sabrina. I look at it as, right now we have an unknown future with the city budget, with the building construction of the senior center. And the way the economy is right now, it's in flux. I would rather see option 1, because we're basically putting it into a savings account that we can later on adjust from one account to the other account and cover any major disturbances that we have coming up. So That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is, the motion on the floor is to approve Resolution 9-2024. A yes vote will approve it as it was presented this evening. Joanne Marcon, will you please call the roll?
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously. Alder Stokes, back to you.
Item 8G, Resolution 10-2024, resolution to transfer to / from various departments in the 2023 general fund budget.
Motion to approve Resolution 10-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Wolf. It's been seconded by Alder Jurassic to approve Resolution 10-2024. Joanne, will you please call the roll?
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you. That resolution passes unanimously.
Item 8H, Resolution 11-2024, resolution to transfer from the 2023 general fund budget to the special revenue fund / special projects.
Move to approve Resolution 11-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Larry Jurassic to approve Resolution 11-2024. Is there any discussion? Please answer when your name is called.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens.
Aye.
That resolution passes unanimously. Thank you, Leanne. Moving on to item 9, Board of Public Works, Alder Knott.
Yes, so we have one item and with the Franklin Street Lift Station rehabilitation bid, I'm gonna turn over to Jared.
Thank you. In your packet tonight is the bid tabulation from the Franklin Street Lift Station bid. That project did receive 4 qualified responsible bidders. In your packet tonight, there is the low apparent bid that staff is recommending approval of TJ's Excavating and Process Works for $553,258 even. We did apply a year ago for the original loan in the amount of $650,000. So when the loan closing goes through, it will be for the actual amount of the bid plus any change orders along the project. So
I move to approve the Franklin Street Lift Station rehabilitation bid not to exceed $553,258.
I second.
Sorry.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Leanne Stokes to approve the bid for the Franklin Street Lift Station rehabilitation as described. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Alder Knott. Moving on to item 10, Parks, Recreation and Library Board, Alder Jurassic.
I'll turn this over to Dan right away.
Welcome, Dan Wick.
Thank you. Thank you, council. We're getting our PowerPoint presentation up. So tonight, we're going to go through the same presentation that we gave to the park board at our meeting in January. I'll start out. Our recreation manager, Craig Cable, will come up. Josh Milbrandt and Corey Check, our 2 rec coordinators, will come up, and we'll each take different sections of the slide as we go forward. So hopefully we tested out all the technology earlier today, so it all worked. We got Amanda running things and Joe there, so we should be good shape. So first, the way we'd like to start. Maybe?
Put batteries in it.
There we go. Are you hitting it? Okay, we did. Okay, the way we started the presentation, now we're going to give it just a little history of the current community center that we have. So just some of the little specs of this facility. We're roughly 3,400 square feet. We just have basically one large meeting room. The kitchen opens up into that main meeting room. One of the biggest issues that we have with this facility is the inaccessible restroom facility that we have narrow doorways and things of the restroom. And storage, we have some storage area for the county nutrition program And so it leaves very little for us and our equipment in the facility. Some of that stuff has to sit out into the area when groups are using it and so forth. And then last, the AV equipment, is from the 1970s. It's great when we have new groups come in and want to plug into the sound system and things, but we've found ways to make that work as we've continued to do the best we can with the space that we have. So next, Craig's going to come up and talk a little bit about the uses of the facility and then talking about the uses of our programs and the spaces that they're in.
Welcome, Craig Cable.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about our current use at the community center. As you can see in this slide here, this is our private rentals, what we do throughout the year. Actually, it's the last couple years. This would be things like birthday parties, weddings, grad parties, and things along that line. So on the weekends, as you can see, last year, we had like 90% of the time our Saturdays were being used and 67% of the time our Sundays were being used. And then you can see the difference in between 23 and 22 there. So at the Saturdays we've had more increase in use at that time. And then also, we also have weekday rentals as well, and those kind of are the same things. Sometimes a birthday party or a grad party or something on a weekday. But last year we had 40 of those rentals as compared to 2022 when we had 18. So I think some of that kind of has to deal with getting out of the COVID thing a little bit, that 22 was down maybe a little bit, and then we've been increasing a little bit as we've kind of gone along. So but it gets used heavily for private rentals during weekdays and on weekends. Someone's always seems to be in the building. So, and then this next slide is kind of the usage during the week. And the main portion of our weekday use up there at the community center is the La Crosse County Nutrition Program, which uses that for their meals and delivery of their meals out of there. So they're in there Monday through Friday. Delivering their meals. But then we also have things like, we do have regular meetings in there, like the Lions Club. And then we also do some programming out of there, which would be, we have yoga, dance, Zumba. We do some small programs, like one-day event, things like some canvas painting or gardening and things along that line. So we do use that periodically throughout the year too, as well, for some of our rec programming needs. This next slide here then is kind of some of the things that we do offer currently at this time, but we use a different location for them. Like most of this is stuff that we would do at the Omni Center. And of course, with the way the Omni Center is now, it's becoming more and more used. Justin and the staff up there are doing a great job of adding more things. So when we try to add something in there, they look at us like, hey, can you go somewhere else on this? But we offer a number of activities in their boardrooms and their meeting rooms, babysitting clinics. We do our no school day camps and our summer explorers camp up there. And with those things, we may be able to slide some of that over to a new community center to give them more options to get more rentals up there. There is some senior programming up there. They do some bridge and cards and mahjong and things along that line. We do also youth enrichment stuff, robotics, fencing, coding and things that where if we had another facility, we can slide those over as well. And then we do have some adult programs that we've done every once in a while up there. So these are just things that we currently are doing, but we could slide into the community center with additional space up there, take a little pressure off the Omni Center a little bit for them. So, and then this other slide here, I just wanted to show as far as the gym use goes, we are in the public schools using their gyms basically every day of the week with our youth programs and adult programs from November through March. Now, they've been really good with allowing us to use their facilities in the evenings. However, we are running into more and more issues with their programmings. They want to do more stuff in their schools with like concerts and use their gym for some of their stuff, where then we get kicked out of it. So then we're like altering our programs and trying to do with what we got. So they've been real good, but it's becoming more and more use. They've got a volleyball club now that gets in there. They got a Royals basketball club. Their high school dance team now uses the elementary schools instead of the high school. They're kind of pushing us out a little bit more as we kind of go along. And so it becomes a little bit more of a hassle, and we don't get quite as much use out of it as we could having another facility. They also have things in their schools, like they set up a whole month in their gym for their gymnastics program. So they boot us out for all of February coming up. Then in another school, we'll do the same thing, and they will kick us out of their gym for another month. So there's just obstacles like that are coming up, where another facility would benefit us greatly to be able to do some of our regular normal activities and be able to do it at a regular rate, rather than doing something, stopping for a little bit, and then having to continue a couple weeks later and things along that line. So as you can see, we are in there pretty much Monday through Saturday and using the 3 parochial schools and the middle school quite a bit. I know they're adding a gym, but from what I understand, most of that gym will be used for their middle school programs, and the other part will be used for the Boys and Girls Club. So there won't be much of a gain for us as far as that goes with a gym. So yeah, I just wanted to point out what we typically do during the week. Now, we also use their gyms in the spring for our volleyball and the fall for volleyball. And so it's just not these winter months that we're using it. We're also using it year round in the fall, spring, summer for basketball and things along that line. So yeah, so I just wanted to kind of point those out. I don't know if anybody's got any questions on any of those things at all. So go ahead.
Just one quick question. And thank you again for presenting this evening. I know everyone did a really great job when Alder Stokes and I attended Parks and Rec this last month. You guys did a really nice job. So thank you for coming back again tonight. One quick question I have: when it comes to the school district, are we kind of just swapping facilities and such? They're not charging us right now, are they?
No, they are not.
Okay, I didn't
No.
think so. Okay.
No, yeah, and then they use our facilities. They'll use our ball fields and things like that, our tennis courts and stuff like
Thank
that
you.
too. So, yeah, so we kind of swap out some of those. Okay. Anything else? All right, I'm gonna pass it over to Josh, and he can come up here and work on some other programming needs. So.
Hey, welcome, Josh.
They've got a video. Dan's got a video that he wants to show first, I guess.
First, when we initially found out that we were going to do it, we contacted all the people that were known to be in the senior center, service providers, rentals, things that we wanted to make sure that people were coming for, that we honored those commitments, and we made sure that because they had people coming to their sale classes like behind us, that we were honoring those. Since we've opened, we have continued to understand how the space is used, and then started to grow and recognizing things that we are lacking, and trying to draw in people to either provide speakers or classes or space for groups to meet. We are making sure that everybody feels welcome, that it's not a membership or a club. We have people sign in just based on tracking and making sure that we have enough to serve the people that are coming in. Our fitness classes are growing immensely. We almost don't have enough space to provide the classes for them. And our activity nights on Wednesdays are growing between the movies, additional card and board games, and our driftwood class. The part that
I think is a secondary that we didn't program. It's just to have people come and meet here, and that this is the place that they meet to talk or meet to have lunch on Tuesdays or Fridays. And that's a beautiful thing to me, to have this be their place that they come. Something that I think is really positive is we have coffee talks with Katie, and it's an open forum for people to come speak. Not all the things that we are talking about are positive about what we are doing, but it's a positive response from giving them the opportunity to be heard. Get some different things happening down here. If it's music, which I would love to bring more things, more music to our lunches, more music in this building. If it's seniors playing music, if it's seniors being played to by other people, I think that would be great. We have some fantastic people who have fantastic stories, and I'd love for the seniors to be able to tell kids, and that's what our project is right now, is to bring high schoolers here to hear about history from someone who was making that history. And I feel like that would just be a gift to everybody. It's hard sometimes to pull up and see in the future and then come back down, especially being a transition team. I think really what we get to do is start the ball moving in the right direction. And that is a really important piece. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be a part of that team. We still have a long ways to go.
I think what we're trying to show with these, we have a couple of videos in this presentation, is what the facility can be and what it can grow to be. It's a lot more than just a building to some of these folks that come in. So when we looked at some of this, it's a place for people to be at and to gather, because it's so important to it. So we're trying to show that. Our next slides that Josh and Corey are going to go through is kind of the programming, how we broke that down. And so then we'll show a video once they're done kind of talking about the activities and programs, kind of the brackets and categories we've created.
All right, so we have a few categories for you tonight. The first one is going to be social. So what a social category here would be a game that people come in and play. This could be something that they do for an hour, but usually it's 3 or 4 hours. It's what people get out of bed in the morning for. It's where they're able to make new friends, laugh, have fun. Really important for their socialization later on in life. The next one is health and wellness program. So this is a very big one, but just very encompassing. It can be something like Silver Seniors, fitness classes, range of motion classes, Zumba, yoga, or something as simple as a flu clinic or free blood pressure checks, but just making sure everyone has access to health and wellness. So enrichment, pretty similar to social, but this is more of a learning aspect, pursuing a passion or trying to find a new passion, embracing hobbies, something that they can engage their mind with, and also share that with friends who have the same like-minded hobbies, interests, and passions. And the last one for me is sports. And this is providing an opportunity for people to play sports, whether that would be pickleball, basketball, or et cetera. And gym space is becoming very hard to fight for in Alaska. With talking to a physical education teacher in Northern Hills, that even with that expansion going on in the middle school will still be using their gym. So there is, whether it's hard to believe or not, there is a fight for gym space in this community. Thank you for your time. I'm going to turn it over to Corey.
Thank you, Josh.
So I think it's important when we go through these categories of what we can do in the future, that all of these are ideas and they can all be built upon and we can make them what we want them. if we're able to get a facility like this, really our options are endless. So as I continue on here, the next section, education, this is money management, this is housing for seniors, diversity, inclusion, all of those different things, some of which we're currently offering at the Omni Center. But as we talked about earlier, the space over there is being used so much more, which is a great problem to have. But having a facility that we could regularly run education seminars and speakers would be very beneficial for our senior population. The next group here is clubs and groups. So this can be anything from book club to wood carving to yarn makers. Really making sure that people of all hobbies have a chance to do something that makes them feel like they fit in and gives them something to look forward to every single morning when they wake up. So a bunch of different clubs and groups and options that would certainly be something that we could do in the future. And then finally, some one-off, maybe one-day events or once-a-year events, whether this is a senior prom or a movie night like we heard in the video, or holiday celebrations or whatever it might be. Some of those bigger one-off events, having a facility that we could do that and not have to worry about some of our other reservations and some of the other things going on, really could give seniors and people something to look forward to and something to kind of build their life around. So all of these different categories, like I said, they're all ideas. We can build upon them. We can do what we want with them. And the options are endless if we have the space and the ability to do that. So we have another video here. As you listen to this video, what stood out to us as a staff was just how much time that these seniors are spending at these facilities and how much they're using it to fit in and to look forward to things in life. So as you watch that video, really pay attention to that because it stuck out to all of us. So thank you.
NPT reports. Aging matters.
Socialization is the number one key to health. It's the number one key. If you live in a community where there's a senior center, go. I like to think that our senior center is a purpose. If you retire and after 6 months, everything you said you were going to do when you retire, you're finished, then what do I do now?
Everything's vanished at the gym.
There are so many things that senior centers offer.
Yeah.
Education, art, travel. The brain games that we do. And if nothing else, a meal. I have actually seen people that once they start coming, they find out that they can't stay away. Your average participant comes 3 times a week and stays 3.5 to 5 hours a day.
That's even better.
The Ashland City Senior Center is probably, I'm going out on a limb here, the most active senior center in all of Tennessee. There is something to do every hour of every day.
We do now?
The thing that is so very, very important to most all of us, I think, is the fact that the friends we make there. I didn't grow up in Ashland City, and I have met so many wonderful, wonderful people. We all get to exercise class an hour early so we can just talk and visit. And that's very important to me.
So now with given kind of a breakdown of activities and things that we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit about schedule. This is one piece, looking at the facility, how we could lay it out. So what we did is we created those categories and then came back with ideas. So our idea coming forward was, during the week that we would hold these health and wellness, anything as a category that people could come in the morning. Then we move into the social programming. Then, with the senior meals being hosted there, that the seniors can be there. I can tell you right now, they do bingo on Tuesday and Friday mornings. If you go by the community center on those days, there's many more people there because there's something active, the social activity of playing bingo that they're there for. And then doing that social programming after. It's that idea they're gathering, they can eat, they can come and do it. And then moving into the enrichment type of programs. You know, the one idea that we have really talked with and looked at and are continuing to look at is the multi-generational programming. We have an opportunity, as the first video talked about how they're bringing kids into the senior center. The location of the community center is going to be nestled right between, you know, Northern Hills and, you know, so if there's seniors there that may want to give back, or if there's kids that have that interaction, I think that's a resource that we have, you know, can tap into because of the adjacency of what we can do. And then at night, you know, looking at private rentals, our programs and things as Craig laid out, there's definitely a need, you know, one space for programming, you know, we're still gonna have to rely on a lot of our other partners, but it could help by bringing under one. And we also can't lose sight of all the reservations that take place. You know, that facility is our heaviest used rented facility. So we know that still would be very popular. With the plans of the new community center, we're going to have 2 spaces that could be utilized because of the demand and things that we have there with it. Then with that, moving on to, you know, the gymnasium portion of it. You know, we are continuing to get people wanting to come in earlier in the morning to do programming, how we can get in as we are limited with what can be done in the schools. So that's a big piece of what we can do. Fitness classes, you know, if it's walking, if it's Tai Chi, things of that nature that can take place. You know, everyone's favorite pickleball. I think right now we could probably rent space in there almost 24 hours a day with the amount of demand that they're coming. And then at night, again, we would utilize that for, you know, our rec programs. It might be our adult volleyball or something like that we could bring in. But then also there would be rentals. I know a community not too far from here that has a community center that they operate, and they're renting their gymnasium out till 11 to midnight almost every night because of the demand of people wanting to come in there and utilize it. So it gives us the flexibility of having that people can continue to use it and where they're going to be at. So is there any questions regarding the programming that what we had?
What would the staffing needs change? I mean, if they're.
I'm gonna get into the staffing right now.
Run out
So
of the
if
time.
there's any programming questions, then I can discuss the staffing and then I can answer any questions that we have. So getting into the staffing, oops.
Oh, sorry, Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Dan and staff, I just want to say thank you for the in my opinion, very thorough, very detailed.
Yep, well,
very good.
I mean,
This is what we need.
I'm standing up here talking right now, but you know, Craig, Josh, Corey all jumped in. You know, we're able to play off a little bit. You know, Josh came to us from a community that had a community center, worked at a community center, so he could bring some of those resources with us, you know, with him. And so it's truly a team effort of everybody, you know, jumping in, trying to give us the best product we can.
When I personally was looking like, what are we going to do with it and the programming, you're going to talk about staffing soon. This is what I was looking for, and I'm very pleased. So thank you very much.
Yep. So as we discuss staffing, I think, again, as we tried to lay out in the first part, we got to understand what we're doing right now. So the current staffing at any of our programs that we have going, if we're into schools, we're at the Omni or something, we're paying staff to be there. So when we look at, is there going to be additional costs? No, because if we bring volleyball that's in one of the gyms, we're already paying a site supervisor. We're already paying program leaders that may be running our basketball there. So from those types of activities, no. I do look at where I think the senior programming and how that may grow. I think there's a need probably once this facility is complete that we would probably have to look at bringing on at a minimum a part-time senior programmer. A lot of the senior activities are run. They like to do themselves, you know, if it's a bridge group or things like that. So we would just need to have the facility open for them. But to create the different programs, you know, we used to do a lot of traveling, you know, putting them on bus trips and stuff. this would be our opportunity to do that. So I would look at, from a staffing standpoint of the facility, that we would probably look at needing some type of a senior programmer going forward. And then I think from the maintenance side, what people don't realize, our maintenance staff, our park staff are in that building twice a day already. They go over every morning, have to do cleaning from activities and things that were at night. They go in after the senior meal program because we have programs going on. So they either have to put up, set tables up, take tables down, and are in that facility. Now, their role would expand, but again, with us having staff, site supervisors, program leaders in there, we can assign some of those duties that they need to be at in that facility when they're in there supervising things. With that, that is what we have put together. So if there's any questions, be happy to try to answer them to the best of our ability.
Thank you for the presentation, Dan and everyone. Is there any questions? I think it was pretty complete. Alder Stevens?
I think it's nice that, we have identified in the past that we don't really have a lot of amenities suitable for our senior populace. We do a lot with kids and families and things like that. And this is an area that was probably maybe underserved in the city, and it's nice to see that we're addressing that.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 11, City Administrator Report. Turn it over to Rick Niemeyer.
Thank you. Excuse me, let's grab my notes here. So the first item that I wanted to bring up here is in regards to the city's alternate side parking. As the city knows, or as you all know, the alternate side parking is in effect until March 15th. And we have had a very nice winter, in my opinion, with the warm weather and lack of snow. I've enjoyed that. And so staff has started to discuss, what is the current need for the alternate side parking, considering the fact that Jared could answer when's the last time they had to plow any snow, and I think it's been a little while. So
Been almost a month.
yeah. So for those reasons, staff started discussing whether or not it was something that we still need to enforce for the remainder of this year. By that, I mean through March 15th of 2024. And so what we are asking council to consider tonight is that we suspend the enforcement of our current alternate side parking ordinance through March 15th of 2024. This is not a change of the ordinance. This is simply just asking the council to approve suspending the enforcement of it. In the event that there would be a snow event of 2 inches or more, we would leave it up to Jared's discretion to reinstate the enforcement for a 48-hour period so that obviously they can do what they need to do on the streets. And so that's what we're asking the council to consider tonight. And certainly we can answer any questions that might come up based on the comments.
Okay, would we want to put a motion on the floor before having a discussion? Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So after talking with administration, namely Amanda in Legal, Jared in Public Works, Rick Niemeyer, City Administrator, and Chuck Ashbeck, our Chief of Police, I approached them talking about this possibility and thought it might be best if we could come up with a motion, if council's agreeable. I thought it might be easier to have like a starting point instead of a motion and then a second, then someone amends. And so this is administration approved, this motion that I'm about to read that everyone has a copy of. So I move that and just so you know, I did not write this really long motion, so don't take it out of me, but it's necessary for what we have to accomplish.
Why did you look at Amanda when you said that?
Because
Amanda wrote the really
it's
long
a really good motion though, but I look to her too, because we want to do it right the first time. So but I do thank you for it. No. But I've been hollered at a few times. That was a long motion. I'm like, I know, but okay. So anyway, I move that we immediately suspend enforcement of alternate side parking through March 15th, 2024, with the exception that if the weather forecast calls for 2 or more inches of snow, the city will reinstate alternate side parking enforcement for 48 hours at the direction of the Director of Public Works. And such decision will be posted on the city website, city social media, and sent to local news outlets. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Told you it was long.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Wolf. It's been seconded by Larry Jurassic, and I believe Leanne Stokes wanted the floor.
Yeah, I would just like to get a few words from Chief Ashbeck on the officers and how the department feels about this and so forth.
Yeah, thank you, Alder Stokes. I think from our department standpoint, it, you know, given the fact that we have had lack of snow, it does seem reasonable to suspend. It seems a little silly to keep enforcing it when we've had 50-degree weather days, and nothing in the, you know, foreseeable forecast for snow. So, I certainly would support this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alder Stevens?
So I mean, the way I understand it, the way we have alternate side parking is to allow our trucks to clear snow when necessary, but if there's no snow and if things are generally warmer, why wouldn't this be our policy all the time? I mean, I know for now, we're just going to address for the rest of this year, but, you know, it seems like it's a good rule of thumb, but maybe we should adopt it permanently.
Thank you. City Administrator Niemeyer?
Just to respond, that has been a discussion that we will talk about this maybe during the summer months. It would require an ordinance change, so it would take some time to put in place. But there will be some discussion to see what, if anything, we can do going forward in regards to this. You know, I'm just suspecting that this year might have been an anomaly with the warm weather, but there are other times that we may have some similar type of weather. So it is something that staff will be discussing and deciding what's the best route to go.
Okay, Alder Knott.
Yeah, so there's risk with this. I'm concerned there might be a false sense of security right now. I do want to remind people we're still in winter, right? It's not spring. I'm looking at the forecast right now on my phone and it says Friday, high of 27, 30% chance of snow. So I think that we could be adding confusion to this. I'm going to give an anecdote, I guess. The last major snow event we had, 5 days afterwards, I happened to be, because of my job, driving through some secondary streets at one of our neighbors who does not have alternate side parking throughout the year. They just do it when the snow event happens. They were still clearing the streets on those secondary roads. Why? Because when you inform people that they're not supposed to be parking on alternate side, on the wrong side of the street after the snow is coming down, it's too late. The plows can't get through. Our streets were clear. On those secondary roads, those streets were all clear within 24 hours. Not the case with some of our neighbors. 5 days later, and I guarantee 7 days later, they were still clearing because I saw mounds of snow where people were still blocking that plow getting through on that side of that street. So if we're even going to entertain this, I think it's essential that this call needs to be made well in advance of a snow event, not like within 12 hours or 24 hours, because the plows won't get through. It's going to be a mess. Saw it firsthand. All right. So in which case right now, Friday calling for snow, 48 hours is today. So I think we're adding a lot of confusion to it myself. Part of the beauty of our policy that we've had in this city for decades is that it is known and it's predictable. All we do is we set the date. And I know it's my understanding the police department gives plenty of warnings when it first goes into effect before they start issuing the tickets to remind people it's that time of year again. So I don't know that this is the way to go. I think that we're going off of hope. And again, I'm looking in 48 hours, 30% chance of snow. Yesterday, it was 20%, so it's actually gone up. So I don't know that I can actually support this myself. I think that we might be having regrets if we get a major snowfall.
Okay, let's see. I think it is Diane's turn, and then we'll go to Leanne next.
Thank you, Your Honor. So as I read this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, maybe I'm misinterpreting, but if the weather forecast calls for 2 or more inches of snow, the city will reinstate alternate site parking enforcement for 48 hours, not, I think what Alder not was.
Yeah, but it would be 48 hours in advance or for 48 hours after the snow starts to come.
For 48 hours
It
after,
would be 48 hours upon Jared's say.
it's got a lot of power going there.
He does. This is giving him a fair amount
And I know I also followed this up with Jared also today, and because my question was, I didn't know if there was a policy or what, and I know he had mentioned that he didn't think there was necessarily a policy, but obviously, you know, like all of our department heads do, would be something that he would be in contact with our city administrator, you know, make a joint decision and touch base and such. I mean, I believe our alternate side parking used to expire, was it April 1st? And I don't know how long ago was that we moved it to March 15th?
We've moved it a couple times in the last 10 years. I mean, it originally was November 1st to April 1st. At this point, we're at December 15th to March 15th. It's just sort of shrunk
Narrowed, right?
and is continuing to shrink.
And thank you. And so I guess, I mean, I want to be proactive, but I know I hear what Aldernat is saying, and the alternate side parking is something that I have always supported, because people get into a rhythm, they get into a habit. This is the way it is, and you get them out of that habit, oh boy. But you know, when we are looking at the weather that we've had this last 30 days, and yes, I think we have a little blip coming up, but you know, I unless I hear otherwise, I think I'm looking to supporting this evening. I know administration, at least as of this afternoon, they were in support of, unless they hear something else from my peers up here this evening. But I think it makes sense. I hear what Alder Stevens is saying, that, you know, why not going forward? I think this would be a good test to see just how it works, and then we'll see. You know, and if we've made a mistake, then I think we'll know it pretty fast, and then we'll go from there. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Now we're over here with Leanne Stokes.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering if I could ask Amanda to kind of give me some ideas what you and Rebecca have been dealing with as far as the alternate side parking and the calls that come in and so forth, just so we have some knowledge of that.
Yeah, so while Chief Ashbeck's department issues the citations, Rebecca and I receive the contests to the citations. And so we have seen a noticeable uptick since, you know, the snowstorm sort of died down and melted off, about people, you know, daily are putting in a request for their parking ticket to be dismissed, and they are routinely citing the weather. And their feelings about parking in Onalaska, and that when the weather is consistently the way it is, they don't feel that this is necessarily a fair ordinance. We even actually today received somebody who paid their ticket with a note attached to it telling us how unfair it was that, you know, that we were enforcing it when the weather was consistently above average temperatures. We are also sort of in the home stretch. I think Jared likes to call it February 15th, but we're real close to the point where if you do look at the temperatures, Friday is a little bit lower, but when we start to look at that 10-day forecast, you know, we're consistently in the 40s. At the end of it, we're in the 50s. And so even if we do get a snowstorm, we're not likely to necessarily encounter what Alder Knott said, simply because the snow will melt much quicker. You know, when we look at snow in December and January, it tends to stick around a lot longer when you get to that February 15th date, which I'll let Jared allude to. But that's sort of when we hit that home stretch where the snow doesn't stay as long. And that's part of why we cut off the March, is because even if we get snow in March, we're less concerned about plowing because typically it melts so much quicker.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other final comments? Okay, Rick Niemeyer, go ahead.
Just briefly as well, there was discussion as well as if for some reason it was a larger snowstorm, let's say multiple 8 inches or so, and we needed additional time beyond the 48 hours, that Jared would have the authority to do an additional 48 hours on top of it. So there would be that in case there was, took more time to clean the streets than what we originally could do in 48 hours.
Okay, and then Sabrina Steger.
Sorry, I should have asked this question, but I just thought of it. How soon are we going to notify people? Like, if you notify them, you know, today that they need to be off the roads tomorrow, do we start ticketing tomorrow? Like if they're on the wrong side of the road? Like how?
Yeah, I would say that This is just a good example. I'm on the Weather Service website right now. We have a probability of snow for tomorrow night. There's a probability of 1 inch plus of snow for lacrosse at 64%. There's a probability of 38% for 2 to 4 inches of snow. So looking at this right now, I would not, with this forecast, I would not probably declare this alternate side parking with what I see now, but it could change tomorrow. So we got to balance that with giving enough time to allow proper notice to residents, but yet still be able to react to a snow event. So there's going to be a little bit of a ebb and flow and balance there. And I don't want to say I want to give it, we'll have exactly 13.4 hours before we give the notice, but we'll try and give as much notice as we can.
I think a rule of thumb would be to try to make that decision by 5 o'clock each day so that we could get it on the 6 o'clock news.
Okay, let's go over here to Larry Jurassic and we'll come around one last time.
This is pretty much identical to lacrosse's program, isn't it?
It is similar, yep, to what lacrosse is enforcing. I believe their snow emergency, as they call it, are only 24 hours.
Okay. I look at it as, yeah, it might be a learning curve, but the way it's designed right now, if people living in Wisconsin know that over 2 inches of snow, you're gonna have to plow the streets, go back to the alternate side parking. I mean, it's not that rocket science. You're gonna have to worry about here. I support the amendment.
Thank you. Alder Stevens?
Thank you. Mayor. I guess 2 points. So first, maybe I don't want to do another amendment, but I may have to. Maybe we change the word immediately to, maybe we start this next week if we're thinking that potentially we're going to have a snowstorm coming up, so we don't set ourselves up to have a problem like right away. But I guess as a whole, maybe to build off what Larry said, I'd taken Stephen's comments into account. If we have the opportunity to allow people to use common sense, like let's keep the ordinance in place for the whole time. But and the word that we used here was enforcement, we're just not going to enforce it if it's 50 degrees out. We're not going to have our police officers waste time giving tickets. But if there's snow out and you're on the wrong side of the road, you should expect a ticket. So, I mean, we can make it easier, and our police department hopefully will be in touch with Public Works if Jared's going to send the trucks out and there's snow coming down. Maybe we just train people to understand that if it's 50 degrees out, you can probably park on whatever side of the street you want. But if it's going to snow and you wake up in the morning and there's, lots of white stuff out there, you might have wanted to be on the, pay attention and be on the even or odd side of the street, as the case may be. So that may take time to relay that to the public. So maybe I guess in summary, let's change the start date from immediately to a little bit later. And then we can look at next year if we're going to change the ordinance. But I think we should still have the parking rules in effect, but let's try to put an element of common sense in there.
Okay, let's keep coming this way and then we'll see if staff wants to respond. Leanne?
I'd like to get Chief Ashbeck's comments on not enforcing if we have it on the books.
Yes, are you referring to Alder Stevens'
Right.
comments? Yeah,
Right.
I think for us, it would be easier if the rule was it was suspended or not, only because I think that what would happen is, the message isn't just going to get out to everybody and we're going to get complaints about, hey, I received this ticket and now tomorrow night, this person across the street didn't. And so I think it's going to make our job harder if we're just kind of, I don't want to say haphazardly enforcing it. That's what it's going to seem like in those people's minds, is we're haphazardly enforcing it when we are trying to follow a system. But I think I would support this framework more than, I guess, what you had suggested because of those difficulties. That makes sense.
I totally agree with Chief on that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Alder Wolf and then Alder Knott after that.
Thank you, Your Honor. So couple things. I know that we have our new website that's going to be getting cranked up. I would think that we would be able to put something on our current website, but for sure at our upcoming website. That could also be advertised, because it's kind of like what the school district, when they go ahead and they have a snow day, everyone knows to check the radio and everyone sees the line going across, on all the 3 TV stations and such. So I would think that we, because I know it's listed here, the city website. And the other thought I was thinking where it could be put, when we approved the billboard on Highway 16 in 2012 or 13, I thought that we had advertising space that they gave us as a municipality. That was part of our agreement. And so we get to put community announcements on there, right?
We do, they just might not get it as quickly as we want them to. Like our turnaround time on getting something on there is,
Oh, really?
yeah.
We don't have direct control of it. We have to put a
Right.
request in, so
And
then
then somebody reviews it and they work it into the,
What good is that? Do we need to revisit that contract? Oh, that's all I have. Thank you. It's just a suggestion.
Okay, Aldernaut?
Yeah, I think that if we do this, we're still going to get complaints. And the reason we're going to get complaints, I think, is because if we do have a snow event, there are going to be a not insignificant number of folks who are either through being confused over the change, not watching the 6 o'clock news, like, oh, I mean, I can count on one hand the number of times I'm watching the 6 o'clock news at my house on any given month because we're just not TV watchers, honestly. Or going to the website, they're gonna say, I got a ticket. I didn't know. How was, how was that my fault? I didn't know. And then on top of that, the unintended consequence, I really do believe, is when we have a snow event, because there will be a number of vehicles that are gonna be still parked on the wrong side of the street because they either didn't know or were just confused on the change. We're gonna have plows. They're gonna have to go back and redo that street when they wouldn't have otherwise had to. Incurring additional cost as well. I know that Amanda had brought up about, looking at historical weather that beyond February 15th, it becomes much less likely that we would even have to do the plowing at all. Well, then I'm thinking maybe the answer is that we further reduce our end date to March 1st or February 15th, as opposed to sometimes we're going to do alternate site parking, but because the weather's nice, we're going to end alternate site parking. I mean, it's just confusing to me. So.
Okay, staff, any other comments? Amanda?
we talk about this a lot, probably more than you actually think on the staff side. Like this is, I mean, Jared, right? Like this is a conversation we have probably every single year about whether or not we should go to this type of a model. And so I guess from a staff perspective, give us a month, like let us try this out. It may be a colossal failure, as Aldernaut says, but then I think we can put the conversation to bed. And we know it's not a good idea and we won't spend the summer debating it and drafting ordinance changes. Or, you know what, it works. And, you know, then maybe we do have a debate over, you know, is this the answer or is shortening the season even more the answer? But I kind of look at this as like a test case, right? We have sort of an unseasonably warm weather. Maybe we'll get a snow shower or two yet, you know, possibly. But I think it could be interesting to sort of like take a controlled litmus test.
Okay, any other staff? Rick?
I just wanted to respond in regards to the notification. I had a conversation with Chief Ashbeck. We have the rave system for the city, and there may not be currently a lot of people signed up for it, but it may be a good time to revisit that and push that out to residents, whether it be by social media or in other forums, to get more people signed up. And that could be another method of notifying people, which would be email and or text message.
Just a minute. Any other staff? Okay, so the motion on the floor is what Diane handed out. That's what we're discussing. So this is the last chance then for people to speak. Go ahead, Aldernaut.
Yeah, notification would have to be saturated. I think that's a great idea. We'd also have to be looking at potentially, is there a number we can call in? I mean, you'd want to give all these different options for people and what they're comfortable with doing. But the other thing too is I'm not so sure that the end of February and beginning of March is a good test bed for whether or not this works throughout the year. So yeah, just enough said.
Okay, Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'm just wondering if Alder Stevens wants to amend the motion to maybe like Thursday or Friday after we get past this little blip, or just leave it, let it roll. So I'll remain mute. Thank you.
Okay.
What-
Anyone else? Last chance? Alder Stevens?
I'm willing to make the motion, but do we want it to snow and do the test?
We do.
I
Yes,
mean,
we do.
Jared, what do you think about that? Is that?
It's gonna be a learning curve for everyone involved, trying to get the word out, and, you know, some things that we could get going aren't gonna happen overnight. So, you know, but we'll give it our best effort, and hopefully we can move forward without, needing to declare it. So,
I guess if we wanted things neat and orderly, then it would make sense to delay the start, but if it's almost maybe a little bit of chaos in this, I think it's good that we have a little bit of versatility and willingness to experiment, so I'm good to roll with it and see what happens.
Okay, everyone good? Okay, the motion remains as it was on the handout. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No.
Motion passes 4-1. Okay. Back to you, Rick.
And I know it's been a long meeting and we still have a ways to go yet, so I'm going to be brief with my remarks tonight. You have my written update, but I'll just hit on them. We've been busy last week doing training with the new websites, so that still moves forward. I did want to touch a little bit on Alder Stokes and my trip to Madison for the hearing on Senate Bill 691. That was the one regarding landowners outside the city limits that could connect to city water and sewer, being very brief about it. The first speaker was one of the co-authors of the bill. They removed that immediately. So that took down a lot of the concern. There are a few things left. It doesn't sound like the bill is going anywhere this session. So we'll continue to monitor, and I'll bring back anything that might be important. Community Center, you heard the presentation tonight. I'll leave it at that for tonight for the sake of moving things along due to the timing. As you all know, according to this, I did a ride along with our school resource officer, Officer Tyler Blair. That went really well. Again, like most of the ride alongs I do, they're quite eye-opening and get a lot of information. Attended the recent Governor's Conference on Economic Development. A lot of good information. Again, I touched on some of the topics in there, from AI to aging population and impacts on the economy. Even had the Green Bay Packers organization come in and give us their plan of economic success. And then the last thing, I just didn't know if people had seen it yet, but the Omni Center got a full page ad on the inside cover of the Explore La Crosse Visitors Guide for 2024. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, I have a copy with me, or if you can pick it up, but I got a full page ad, so on the inside cover. So that was kudos to Dana and staff and the Omni Center as well. So anyhow, I just wanted to point that out in case you hadn't seen that yet. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Let me just ask real quick, since we've had, in my opinion, severe past problems with audio and hearing people. This evening, I can hear people like I've never been able to hear people and understand them from all different parts, as long as people are using their microphone. Is everyone else?
Yes,
sound
I
something that's
actually
much
thought
better?
that in my head earlier today.
Okay, I just,
Changes? No, it's been good.
yeah, so whatever's going on, can we just keep it that way?
Yeah.
Just- I just want to say that, I mean, I personally have struggled,
Mhm.
and it is so nice to hear everyone talk. So thank you. I just want to make sure that I wasn't the only one, but thank
The
you.
echoes aren't too bad.
Oh, yeah, it's so, and usually I have problems over here, but
Yeah.
perfect tonight. So yes, thank you.
Okay, on that happy note, item 12, closed session. To consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 1985 1E of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or the conducting of other specified business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Specifically, ASI Holding LLC property in French Valley, Onalaska School District property in French Valley, recruitment of retention issues in the police and fire departments, to consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 1885 1G of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or the conducting of other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. specifically consideration of the development agreement with Nationwide Property LLC for Nathan Hill South. If any action is required in open session as a result of the closed session, the council will reconvene in open session to take the necessary action and or continue on with the printed agenda.
Your Honor, I move that we go into closed session after a brief recess.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Dan Stevens. It's been seconded by Larry Jurassic to go into closed session. Voting will be by roll call. I'll turn to the city clerk, Joanne Marcon.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Stephen Knott.
Aye.
We are in closed session. The time is 9:05.